last night, the Chicago Bulls lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in an elimination game, which means the Chicago Bulls will no longer be playing the rest of the season, and we won't see them for almost half a year. And normally I try to start my videos out on a really high note with a lot of energy, and I'm not going to try and fake it. Of course, I'm not going to have a bunch of energy and be excited that the Chicago Bulls are no longer playing for the rest of the season. Now, I am really thrilled that the Chicago Bulls did make the playoffs for the first time in 5 years, and I'm very happy for that, and I did expect the Bulls to lose this series, but it still sucks to actually see it come to pass. But nonetheless, we're going to be talking about this series, each game a little bit, the scores of the game, some of the things that happened during the game. Then, whoa, my cat's right behind me. I'm about to step on his tail. Then we're going to talk about some of the overall statistics, differences in some stuff. Then we'll talk about who had the most at each statistical category. And lastly, we'll talk about some of the Bulls players and what they did during the series. But if this is your first time on this channel, my name is John. This is the Sports Advocate. Thank you so much for tuning in. Give me a like, give me a dislike, give me some criticism down below. I'd really like to improve. Comment your thoughts on the series up until this point, whether you thought it was a good series, whether you thought the Bulls could have done better, or anything like that. And you might as well subscribe because I have content like this daily, and I really appreciate every single one of you is noticed and appreciated. But nonetheless, let's go and get right into this. Let's talk about game by game. Obviously, the Chicago Bulls lost the series 1-4 in 5 games. Not great. But game 1, 86-93 loss. A lot of energy was brought to this team after that game. A lot of people thought maybe this would be a lot closer of a series because of it. There was good defense played, but the shooting was not very good, and I think everyone knew that. But in game 2, the Chicago Bulls won 114-110, and everyone was very excited. They're like, wow, this series really can become very good. The Bulls shot a lot better than they did before. Demar Derozan had 41 points. It looked very good. The defense, not as great as it was before, but you still found a way to win. And Chris Middleton ends up getting injured in the fourth quarter with only a couple minutes left. Big hit for the Bucks. A lot of people were like, oh, the Bulls can probably pull something out here maybe. There's a chance because Chris Middleton's no longer there. It's just Giannis and Drew Holiday, and, they don't have that third big piece. Next game, no one expected it, honestly, compared to the previous 2 games. 81-111 loss. Huge loss in Chicago. First game in Chicago in 5 years. Very tough loss. Next game, another tough loss. 95-119. Another loss in Chicago. Geralt, come on, dude. And Alex Caruso goes down with a concussion. We don't know if it's a concussion, but he entered concussion protocol and missed Game 5. Speaking of Game 5 and missing Game 5, Zach Levine enters COVID protocol a day or 2 days before. I think it was a day after Game 4. Enters COVID protocol, ends up missing Game 5. There's some reports that he is actually very sick, and it wasn't just him getting tested and, oh, you're positive, so you have to sit out. Apparently he is very sick. I hope he does well. I hope he returns to health very soon. But nonetheless, that's a tough hit. Then you're left with DeMar Vooch and P. Will as your normal starters in that lineup. But Bulls still lose 100-116 in Milwaukee. Milwaukee closed out the series in a very stellar fashion, and now we'll be facing the Boston Celtics. But we'll talk about those series in a later episode, later video about my thoughts on round 2 of the playoffs. Let's talk about some of the overall stuff. First things first, 73 total point differential. 14.6 average point differential. So per game, there's about 14.6 points difference. And that might seem a little confusing, especially with how close game 1 and 2 were, with only being, 7 and 4 points difference. But you look at the remainder of the games, you have a 30-point difference, you have a 24-point difference, and you have a 16-point difference. So it's going to end up bringing it closer than that, especially with a 30-point difference, is really going to skew it up more. So 14.6 point differential, even though the first 2 games seemed very close, were very close, it really blew how competitive the series was with the last 3 games. There was also a 39 rebound differential. There was 39 more rebounds for the Bucks than the Bulls. A struggle that's been going on year round. I think it was expected, but it's tough to see that 39 total rebounds differential is huge. And, I could go over assist differential. I could go over turnover differential, free throw differential, because a lot of people talked about that. But there's really no point in doing that. Differentials, yes, they're statistical, but the Bucks were very clearly the better team, and they were expected to be the better team. That's why they were higher seed. There's going to be differentials. That's how you're winning games. That's how you're winning 4 more games or 3 more games than our team. There's going to be some big differentials, but those were like the biggest ones, the point differential and the rebound one. Next up, let's talk about the top statistical categories. We're going to go through the main 3, points, rebounds, assists, and then also field goal percentage, because that is a very, very big thing, especially in this series. Game 1 was a struggle for both teams a lot, and some of these remaining games were also struggles later on for the Bulls, not really the Bucks anymore. Top points. Giannis Antetokounmpo has 143. Demar Derozan had 104. Pretty big difference there. But Demar at number 2 is quite well, even though he kind of, struggled a little bit in the playoffs. A lot of people expected that. I sort of did expect that. And Nikola Vucevic had 97. Only 5? Wait, that's not 5. Oh my gosh. 7 differential in points from DeMar DeRozan. So a lot of people were begging on Vooch all year round, but I think he did pretty good in this series. And we're going to talk about Vooch here in a second here, because he actually did very, very good. Next up, top rebounders. Again, Giannis Antetokounmpo has 67. Vucevic has 62. Again, Vucevic, good job out there. And Bobby Portis has 57. Next up, top assist leaders. Kind of expected one here is Drew Holiday at the top. 39, I think, is what I wrote. That's probably 39. Giannis Antetokounmpo, next up, 31. That's kind of expected, though, when he's constantly driving to the basket and people are going to have to help down on him. He's going to find these open men for 3-point shots and all that sort of stuff. So, not a big surprise there. Next up, tied for 3rd in the series for assists is Zach Levine and DeMar DeRozan. I put Zach Levine in 3rd because he played one full less game, and he would have ended up with a rebound at some point. But Zach Levine and DeMar DeRozan are tied for 3rd most assists with 24. Not too bad, but again, every single statistic here is dominated by the Bucks, except for points. I guess DeMar and Vooch, but if Chris Middleton would have continued playing, I'm sure he would have had over 100 points. Now, the most Bucks dominant statistic, field goal percentage. And we saw that from Game 1 all the way through Game 5. The top 3 field goal percentage, all of them are from the Bucks. I think top 5 were all from the Bucks, if I'm being honest. The best percentage for the Bulls, out of how I did this, you have to have 50 or more shots to be included in this. Otherwise, I think Tristan Thompson had like 100%, but he only shot 4 times or something like that. No one wants to see Tristan Thompson's name up here. So I did 50 shots or more. I think P. Will had the best shooting percentage for the Bulls, and it was still like a 46%. Top field goal percentage overall for the whole series, again, all from the Bucks. 60 from Grayson Allen. He was shooting incredible, and I think all Bulls fans hated it, especially with the Alex Caruso incident. 60% from the entire field, and he was pretty darn near close to that for 3-point percentage as well. Giannis Antetokounmpo has 57% from the field. When you're shooting dunks, layups, all that stuff, he's still quite good, very good in the mid-range. You're going to have a very, very good percentage. I think he was like 19 or 20% from 3-point range, though. So take that in consideration. He still did have quite a good percentage, especially inside the 3-point line. I think he was like 2 for 11, 2 for 12, somewhere around there. And lastly, Brook Lopez had 50% field goal percentage, and that is 3rd in field goal percentage. Again, top 3, all from the Bucks, all above 50% shooting. That's tough to see, and I think the closest was for the Bulls was like 6th place for Patrick Williams with like a 46%. So that's tough. But now let's talk about what the Bulls did personnel-wise during this season, during the playoffs, actually, during this series. I only did 4 players. I might rant a little bit here at the end because there's plenty more to talk about. But first things first, there was a lot of bets going on from Tristan Thompson at the beginning of the series. Hey, Vucevic, be the best big man, I think he said. But I think Giannis is technically a big man because he's kind of a power forward, but he's also a small forward. Vucevic definitely was not the best big man if Giannis is a big man. But if you're just talking centers, we'll cover that in a second here. I think Zach Levine was dared to be the best guard, best scorer, something like that in the playoffs. So, again, a lot of bets going on here. But first, let's talk about Vucevic. Nikola Vucevic. There's a bet from Tristan Thompson, like I said, to be the best big man, but I just compared it to centers. Brook Lopez, the starting center over there. I saw this statistic on Twitter. I did fact check it. It is correct. Vucevic outscored Brook Lopez 4 of the 5 games. He out-rebounded Lopez 5 of the 5 games, and he out-assisted him 4 of the 5 games. Very, very good. I think that's quite a good way to solidify yourself as the best center in that game. And that's exactly what everyone was hoping for in this series, especially with a lot of people giving him a lot of slander during the regular season. I mean, 4 of 5 on scoring, 5 of 5 rebounding, 4 of 5 on assists, being third for total points in the series, being second for total rebounds. Very, very good. And his shooting percentage, game 1 definitely messed it up a lot, but through the remainder of the series, he shot quite well, actually. And he did miss some open threes. There's people closing out on him, but when he got the ball, he was open. When he started the motion, he was open. But people are going to close out on you. And he was still missing a little bit more than usual during the regular season, at least. But I still think he did very, very good. And I've been a Vucevic supporter. I've seen a lot of people say, hey, we need to get rid of him. But I think that he has done very well. And if he can do this next year consistently like he did in this playoff series, definitely deserves to stay on this team. And I'll save what I was about to say there for a second. Next up, Zach Levine. Again, he was bet to be one of the best guards or scorers. I can't remember exactly which. He did miss game 5. He's been playing the whole season, including this series, on a bum knee. So, a lot of people are giving him slack, saying trade him. It's getting outrageous, guys. He did have 19.3 points per game. He did have 6 assists per game, and he had 5.3 rebounds per game. And if he would have played game 5, I'm sure he would have been in the top 4 points. He is in the top for assists. He had 19.3 points per game, which was second or third on the team in the series, being injured still. You guys give Zach so much crap, but he did really good. He played very well, especially on an injury, but nonetheless, without an injury, he still played very well. So give him props for that. And let's wish him well for whatever he is sick with, that he returns well and he's all healthy here soon. Because those off-season training videos that you see Zach Levine are insane. Next up, Demar Derozan. His playoff slides consistently. Game 2, it looked like he turned around. He had 41 points, but the remainder of the season, including game 1, looked like DeMar in playoffs, his usual self. And that really sucks to say because I am a big DeMar fan before he was even on the Bulls. In the playoffs, 20.8 points per game, 4.8 assists per game, 5.2 rebounds per game. In the normal regular season, 27.9 points per game, 4.9 assists per game, 5.4 rebounds per game. I might have switched those because they're really close. I might have switched those. Nonetheless, every single statistical category other than possibly rebounds was worse than the regular season. And by a large margin for points per game, 20 to 27. But let's take this with a grain of salt. The goal of the Bucks, especially in that game 5, was to limit his scoring, limit his capability. Because everyone clearly sees, especially throughout the regular season, that he was the better or best scorer on this team. So they were sending doubles his way anytime he was going to the net. They were sliding over and helping on him. So he was going to have less points because the Bucks planned around it. And during the regular season, it's kind of hard to plan game by game and come up with a really good plan to limit each person because everyone plays different. But when you're in a series one-on-one with a guy for 4 to 7 games in a row, you can really build a plan. And that's what their plan was, to really limit Demar's scoring, and they did quite well at it. So you got to give the Bucks defense props. I don't know if you can fully blame this on Demar. Your best player on the team is going to be defended very well in the playoffs, especially against a Bucks defense that is stellar. Now, this regular season, they weren't as great as they were last year in the playoffs, but it looks like they returned to form. I mean, 2 games at 100 or more, 1 game above 100 for the Bulls. You know, the Bucks have a very good defense, so you can't take that away from them. Lastly, of the written down statistical players that I have here is P. Will's growth. Now, game 1, 2, and 3, not the best. It wasn't the best. His minutes per game seemed to be limited early on in the series. Not sure what was going on there. But game 4 and game 5, he was playing very, very well, and kind of what all the Bulls fans wanted. And that goes along with the last regular season game of the year. He played very, very, very well. But the last 2 games of this series, game 4 and game 5, P. Will had 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 53.8% field goal percentage in game 4. That's a double-double with 20 points. That's very, very good. And above 50% shooting. And I think he shot above 50% from 3 too, or 40%. Very, very good. Now, game 5, he had 21 points. His rebounds, he had 1 rebound, game 5. Tough. He had 1 block or 1 steal in game 5. But his offense was still doing quite well. 21 points with a .692 field goal percentage. A really, really, really good field goal percentage. Now, he doesn't shoot as much as some of these other players, so maybe that doesn't, pop out as much to you because he doesn't shoot as much, so it doesn't take as many to have such a great, but he was definitely above 50% from 3 this game. He played very, very good. Game 4 and game 5. And Zach was there game 4, don't forget that. And Caruso was there for a good part of the game. Game 4, he did very good with most of the team that's been there year-round there. Now, game 5, without Zach and Caruso, maybe you could say you kind of expected 21 points from him, but he still has to go out and score that against a really good team. And he was able to do that. And I think he was the top point getter in, did I say 21 points? 23 points in game 5. He was still the top point getter, I think, in game 5. So, props to him. Now, let's go on a little bit of rant here. No more statistical categories. One quick thing I want to note. I'm going to do a video. I'm going to do a lot of videos for what the Bulls should do in offseason, what they could do, draft, free agency, all that stuff. But quick note here. To all Bulls fans, everyone can have an opinion. Go ahead. Everyone deserves to have an opinion. And you cite that opinion and have a conversation with people, that's perfectly fine. But if someone has a different opinion from you, you should not be screaming at them. I know it's Twitter, so you can't really technically scream at them, but you don't need to go on a fight and just start bashing people for having a different opinion than you. Why am I saying this? Because some of these trade ideas are coming out and fire Billy Donovan and all that stuff, I think are atrocious, but everyone has their own right to an opinion. And yes, there are better players than Zach and Vucevic and better coaches than Billy Donovan and all that stuff. But that doesn't mean that you have to be like, hey, trade this guy. Hey, he doesn't deserve a max. Hey, he blah, 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 blah. People can have different opinions. So if you want to trade these guys, okay. If you think he doesn't deserve a max, okay. But don't be just destroying fans of the same team as you over it. Come on, guys. We're better than that. The Bulls fan base was number 1 in tickets selling home and away. And we're doing this to our own fans. Come on, we're better than that. Now, speaking on the Zach and Vooch trade stuff, I do not agree with it. I don't agree with DeMar trade either. I've seen some ideas out there. Some decent ideas out there. There was a Zion trade that I was like, this isn't terrible. It included DeMar and Kobe and some picks. I'm like, that's not terrible with DeMar being older and Zion being super young. But you're worried about his injuries, if he wants to play, stuff like that. So that's a little worrisome. That's not a terrible trade. But Zach definitely deserves the max. Now, he can't get a super max. To anyone that's wondering that, he cannot get a super max, but he definitely deserves a max. There's plenty of players out here that are getting a max that aren't superstar players. Zach is definitely a superstar player when healthy, and he was not healthy all year round. Vucevic, yes, he struggled, and he struggled quite a lot in the last part of the season, but he played very, very good in this playoff stretch. He was consistent throughout the whole year. He was definitely a top 3 guy for us. I think he's a very good option for us. Now, I've seen, hey, go get Rudy Gobert and all that stuff. Now, if the Jazz are willing to move him and you get the right option, maybe you do. But let's think about this. Rudy is a super, super good defensively. Now, that is something that the Bulls need. But when you have everyone healthy, Zoe, Cruz, all that stuff, this team was a very, very good defense. So do you need to bring him in? I don't know, but you got to remember that's limiting your offense. So how are you going to combat a loss of a 20 points per game center if you're bringing in somebody that's getting, I don't even know what Rudy Gobert is getting this year, 10, 12, maybe 15, I don't know. I guess I could look that up while I'm talking. I think Vooch definitely deserves to, he's very good. He can be on the team. The slander towards the coach is terrible. Billy Donovan's a great coach. You got to remember what this team was when he came to this team. I mean, it was just Zach. That was pretty much it. It was just Zach. Since he's been here, he's only been here 2 years. Remember that. Only 2 years. Vucevic, DeMar, Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball, Patrick Williams. Five guys that are in the playoff rotation. And a playoff rotation is about 8 guys. He brought in 5 guys for the playoff rotation. 5 very good guys. 2 of them are, are all-star talent. Possibly 3 if Zoe is doing well. Caruso is probably the best 6 man in the league if Zoe's healthy. He has helped this team a lot. And yes, there were struggles later in the year. But you got to remember, they were number 1 seed for a long time. Rudy Gobert's stats. Give me his season stats. 15.6 rebounds per game, or not rebounds, 15.6 points per game, 14.7 rebounds per game, and it doesn't show me his defensive stats. That's a little weird. So that's, not terrible, but you also got to remember what are you also trading with him. I don't know his age, but Vucevic, his stats, and you look up stats. My cat is making all the noise he can over there. So, yeah, Rudy Gobert adds a lot to the defense, and maybe he doesn't take a lot away from offensively. Vucevic only had 17.6 points per game, so you're not losing a ton. You're losing 2 points per game. But what do you have to trade with Vooch? Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to trade him 1-for-1. So what are you trading with? Are you throwing a pick in? Do you have to throw a first-round pick in? Are you throwing in a depth guy like Derrick Jones Jr.? How do their contracts match up? Do you have to throw in Kobe White? Is that something you want to do? We'll talk about this in a future video. But for now, since this whole video is about this series, I'm very happy that the Bulls were able to make it into the playoffs. I'm very happy with this series, even though they did lose, but I did expect it. And that's all. I'm not going to go rant anymore. I ranted plenty. I think I brought good statistics for you guys. But with that being said, I hope you learned something today. I hope that I made you laugh. I hope I made you smile. That's something that's really important to me, affecting someone else today in a great way. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.